Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for this first ever episode of this new series that I'm starting here on my channel, which I'm going to be calling Terror Vision Reviews. So, no, not reviewing movies from the company Terror Vision. In this series, I'll be reviewing horror-related TV shows, whether it's an anthology series and I get into specific episodes like today's episode, or I get into seasons from a show and I talk about that a little bit. It just gives me a chance to talk about horror-related TV, like I said, where so far on my channel all I've done in a review format is talk about movies. So I'm excited to get into this one. Hopefully you guys enjoy this series as it goes. It's something I'm really looking forward to. I said that I was going to be starting this series late last year. I was talking about how in 2025 this is something that I wanted to get into. Like I said, the title of this series, it's not original. All I've done is take the word television, turn it into TerraVision. Not original at all, but it's something that I'm super excited to get into. I'll talk a little bit how this series is going to work towards the end of this review, so if that's something that interests you or you have any questions, stick around for that. But either way, let's get into today's review. So for the first episode of my TerraVision reviews, the show that I selected to kick off this series is a kids-friendly animated horror anthology. I'm sure a lot of you guys would be familiar with this series, but I went with the show Tales from the Cryptkeeper. Like I said, I'm sure a lot of horror fans would be familiar with this series, especially some of my older viewers, and if you grew up in the 90s, you probably have seen this show before. I decided to go with Tales from the Cryptkeeper for episode 1 of my TerraVision reviews, purely because, first of all, I didn't want to start with a whole season of a show, especially because I just finished watching a season of a show. On Netflix, I was watching Mindhunter, and yes, I know I'm late to that series, but I was having a great time watching that, and just finished season 2, which is also the final season of that show. I can't believe it got cancelled, but I really didn't feel like getting straight into another season, especially for a review and having that review mindset. So I have plenty of anthologies. I'll pick one of them out, and I went with Tales from the Cryptkeeper because I kind of recently picked up this complete series edition that has all 3 seasons of the show, and I'm pretty sure I've seen all of season 1. I feel like I've at least seen majority of season 2, but just off the top of my head, it didn't ring a bell any episodes from season 3, so I'll go with that. If you are unfamiliar with Tales from the Cryptkeeper, like I said, it's a kid-friendly animated spin-off of the adult version being Tales from the Crypt, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with that show, but like I said, this is the kid-friendly spin-off where, each episode is about learning a lesson, but it has ghosts and ghouls and the Crypt Keeper doing his puns and everything, so that's pretty much the gist of the show. So today's episode that we're getting into in particular is titled Monsters Ate My Homework, which is season 3, episode 12. Like I said, just off the top of my head, I don't think I've seen any of season 3 before. Maybe if I go through a few more episodes, some of them might ring a bell, but like I said, I think I was going into this one pretty fresh. It wasn't until I put the disc in, I actually found out that this is actually the second last episode ever of the show. The only thing I knew about season 3 is that it's actually the rebooted season. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe after season 2 the show got cancelled, and then 5 years later it got this reboot. A new company picked it up, and season 3 is the product of that. And when you're actually watching the show, you can feel the differences, as in the title comes up as New Tales from the Cryptkeeper. But I think the most obvious thing is the animation. The animation is a lot cleaner. I know that sounds like a positive, but I feel like with the animation being so clean, it almost comes out a little bit basic and it loses a lot of its character and charm. But there's other differences as well. The format hasn't completely changed. The title sequence is different, which kind of sucks because I loved the title sequence from season 1, and season 2 is also pretty good. It loses the intros that is run by the Crypt Keeper, where he does all these puns and welcomes you to the episode and whatever. It loses that. But, it's not completely foreign, or it doesn't feel like a complete shell of what it was in seasons 1 and 2. But like I said, you can tell that the show was rebooted and sort of goes with a slightly different format. But otherwise, like I said, we've gone through the gist of what this show's about. It's kid friendly. Each episode's about learning a moral lesson and whatever, but it has ghosts and ghouls and the Cryptkeeper and everything. But I've done a lot of rambling about what this show is. I'm going to try not to do that so much during these TerraVision reviews because most of these shows will be pretty well known. So let's get into the plot of Monsters Ate My Homework. As I said, Tales from the Cryptkeeper, Season 3, Episode 12. Based off the title alone, I'm sure you can sort of get the gist for it. It's one of those boys that cried wolf sort of scenarios. It's about this kid who lies to his teacher about how monsters ate his homework, so he couldn't get it in on time for this assignment and whatever. But then, as a repercussion, monsters actually come out from under his bed and claim, you haven't, given this homework that apparently we ate, so it's either you give us homework or we eat you, and that's sort of the gist of the episode. So let's get into it. Season 3, Episode 12, Monsters Ate My Homework. So given the show is what it is, there's not many dark episodes of Tales from the Cryptkeeper, but from memory, especially ones from Season 1 and 2, there are a few that go into darker territory, and they're normally the ones that I do gravitate to and I do enjoy more. I'm not sure if Season 3 tone-wise made it feel, a little bit goofier, or they went with a lighter, more kid-friendly approach, even though the whole show is kid-friendly. But this episode does fall more into the fantastical, comedy-based episodes, which I don't normally gravitate to, but this one was fun. You got this kid who not only lies, but like his whole personality is lying and being good at it. Like, for example, when you're introduced to his friends at the start of this episode, he gets on the school bus and they all start clapping and they're like, yes, here comes the king of lies. What lies is he going to run through today? And he's like walking down the aisle in the bus and he's like, yeah, the king of lies is here. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, it's so ridiculous, but it's actually played out pretty funny. The meat and potatoes of the episode, like I said in the plot description, he says to his teacher, couldn't hand in the homework, monsters ate it. So that night, these monsters come out from this portal under his bed, and they've heard about his lies. They're like, hey, you said we ate your homework, we're the homework-eating monsters, so where is it? And, he can't think of a lie straight away, so they're like, you either give us this homework or we're gonna eat you. And I think that's all pretty fun. The monsters end up taking him to this monster world through the portal under the bed. And the kid's name is Evan. And Evan just starts spinning lie after lie after lie. And it eventually just builds up to being a bigger problem and, something that, he puts him in a scenario where it's like way over his head, giving you the episode's lesson. Don't lie, just be honest. Else you're going to have bigger problems down the track. The monsters in this one, they're okay. I did like one monster in particular, this big orange hairy guy, deep voice, very well spoken. His voice kind of reminded me of like James Earl Jones kind of vibe. Then you did have his like sidekick friend, this little pink fat monster who was kind of the comic relief, even though I didn't find him that funny. He had a couple of one-liners that were okay, but he was kind of annoying. I think the journey in this one was pretty fun, as in going into this monster world that was pretty cool. Like I said, the fact that this kid just lies and makes it his whole personality is ridiculous, but like I said, makes for some pretty funny moments. Like, they're like, where's this homework? You said that the monsters ate it, we're the homework-eating monsters. And he's like, oh, yeah, but it wasn't you guys, it was a different monster. And then they're like, oh, we know exactly who you're talking about. And he's like, oh, shit. And then he's like, no, not that monster, another monster. And it just keeps going and going, and it's ridiculous. Like I said, it's a more comedy-based episode, which a lot of them do bring a lot of comedy in because it's a kid-friendly show. Like I said, there's not many dark episodes, but I do like the ones that push the envelope. But for one that was more fantastical and comedy-based, I thought this one was okay. Alright, so I'm going to start wrapping up this first episode of my TerraVision reviews. I know the actual review part of this video was kind of short, but keep in mind it's an anthology series and this is an episode that roughly runs for maybe 20 minutes max, so there's not a lot to get into. I did like the ending of this episode. I thought it was kind of funny and honestly probably more so charming is the best way to describe it. I did like the ending and how Evan learns his lesson and everything like that. I thought it was pretty cool. From what I heard about this season and it being the rebooted season of the show, like I said in the introduction to this video. I knew it was going into a different company's production, and even before watching this episode, I knew just from word of mouth and things like that the animation style was going to be different, so I was prepared for that. But I was pleasantly surprised by the enjoyment I got from this episode. It's definitely not one of the best episodes from the show, and it won't be a go-to episode from the catalogue that is offered there that I've seen, but it's also far from the worst. I remember there being some pretty bad episodes from this show, watching it as a kid and all that stuff. But it wasn't boring. I was entertained. Not overly funny, but a nice chuckle here and there. Obviously not scary, but maybe for a kid, I don't know, monsters under your bed or something like that. But getting to a rating for the episode Monsters Ate My Homework from Season 3 of Tales from the Cryptkeeper. The ratings for this series, when I'm reviewing a whole season of a show, I'll probably base my ratings kind of similar to how I do my movie reviews and how I do the ratings there. But for anthology shows where I'm reviewing specific episodes, the ratings are going to be kind of based and compared to the show's standards, or at least against, the standards of other shows that are similar vibes. Like, if I give an episode of Tales from the Crypt Keeper an 8 out of 10, don't compare that 8 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10 I've given for a movie or a season of a show, compare it to Tales from the Crypt Keeper standards, So just keep that in mind, going forward with these reviews. Did I touch on the animation? I did a little bit. Like, as I said, it's definitely more crisp and cleaner compared to earlier seasons and a bit more polished. But, it doesn't necessarily mean that I like the animation more. I feel like it loses a lot of its charm and personality. But anyway, let's get into it. The rating for Monsters Ate My Homework from Season 3, I'm going to give it a 6.5. As I said, Tales from the Crypt Keeper standard. So above average, but, there's definitely episodes that I've seen before that I prefer more. But like I said, that is a standard for the series, not for, other reviews coming up. So keep that in mind. A 6.5, I'm not saying that it's better than, a movie that I've done for my random horror review series that I rated a 4. This is just for Tales from the Crypt Keeper standard. So keep that in mind with my anthology episodes for my random, for my Terror Vision reviews. But yeah, thank you for joining me for this episode, guys, the first ever episode of my Terror Vision reviews. Hopefully this is a series that you'd like going forward. If you've seen any Tales from the Crypt Keeper episodes, let me know some of your favourites in the comments below, or if you've seen this one, let me know if it rings any nostalgia bells for you. Any shows that you would like to see me review, whether it's a full season or a specific episode, feel free to let me know in the comments below. And with it being the first episode, make sure to show this video a lot of love, just so I know that you guys enjoy this series and, gives me drive to keep doing it going forward. But thank you for joining me again, guys, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.